Hi, everyone, and welcome to my 10 questions with video series where I ask working virtual assistants all about their business. So, question one, who are you? Tell me about your business.
Hi, Joanne. I'm Beth McGee, and my business is Exemplary VA. And I provide a whole bunch of services. And this year, I'm focusing specifically on working with nonprofit organizations. And I also have a mobile and remote notary service.
Amazing. And you live in the States?
I do. I live in New York State, and I love to connect with other VAs in my area. So if anyone who's watching this is in New York and is a virtual assistant, I would love to connect.
Amazing. Well, your contact details will be below in the description. So, yeah, hopefully you'll get a few people. Um, do you live with your family? Who do you live with? Just like your partner? Have you got children at home?
So my husband and we've been married for over 30 years, and our children are all grown. Each of them live a couple hours away. We see them quite a bit. We also have grandchildren that we see often. So yes, I live with my husband and my boxer dog, Piper. And this work is really wonderful for flexibility and spending time together. And yeah, that's who I am.
Perfect. And what did you do before you became a virtual assistant? Like, what happened for you to decide to set up your own business?
Well, I have owned a business of cleaning and organization and personal services for about 30 years. So I often have found myself assisting people with their computer problems or, administrative things. I've also served on many boards and, worked in my community on a lot of projects. So this like owning my own business came naturally to me. It's something that I have been honing as a business owner for a long time. What I also served in public office for 6 years and was an executive director of a mental health advocacy organization. So that type of work, it really kind of had it was like crisis proportions during COVID. And I just found that doing work for other organizations as an employee or even in local government, which I don't want to discourage anyone from doing because I think it's very important. It can be really challenging. And I really love the administrative end of all of that work and problem solving and strategizing. And so rather than just doing that for one focused organization, I'd prefer to be, since I was so successful at it, I'd prefer to be able to do that work for lots of organizations, so or lots of businesses, whoever I'm choosing to work with at the time, because a lot of times people don't know how to get out of their own way. They're entrenched in their problems or their challenges, and it's difficult for them. It's very helpful to have someone on the outside to be able to observe for them and give them some critical analysis and some strategies for moving through those things. So that's
Yeah,
that's what
impartial
made me
advice.
launch this.
Yeah. So when you were considering, becoming a virtual assistant, what was your biggest fear around that?
I was really afraid that I wouldn't be able to narrow down all that I know how to do. It became really, at first, it became really overwhelming to try um, to navigate that, to bring it down to be able to articulate it to people. If I couldn't do that myself, how was I going to convince anybody else that they needed me? So that was really one of the biggest challenges, and really kind of sitting down and writing out all those things. And one thing I will say is that you have a list of over 100 possible services that VAs could do. And I love that list even now because I go back to it and I say, oh, no, I don't like this. I don't like this. I do like this. I don't like that. So it's very helpful for me, even as time goes on, to review what I'm doing, what I like to do. And so yeah, so that was my biggest fear.
Okay. Yeah, that comes up a lot actually, I think, with people when they first start out, they're not really too sure. They kind of think, well, I can do everything, because you can as well, right? When women who have worked sort of, especially in an admin type role, they are the go-to people. They're so used to having lots and lots of things thrown at them and being able to manage lots of things that when it comes to offering it, they're like, I can do 1,000 things, but you can't market yourself in that way.
Right.
You have to narrow it down, right?
Mhm.
So question 4, how has your life changed since you left, traditional employment and started working for yourself?
Um, just the flexibility has been great. The other morning, I didn't have a chance to do this, but I was thinking all morning about this orange bread recipe that I had seen online, and the video was just so enticing. And I kept saying, "Oh my gosh, I need to make that bread. I need to make that bread." And so I woke up in the morning and I was like, "Oh, well, my schedule allows for this." First thing in the morning, got up, made the orange bread, and just sat and savored it. And I just kept thinking, if I was working a traditional job, I'd be commuting right now. I wouldn't even be being paid for that at the time because I'm just commuting to my work, right? And not sitting here savoring this moment and just kind of starting my day in my own way. I really love being able to give attention to creating a life that I want, that is fulfilling. I can make time for the things that I find are important. And I do mostly project work or by appointment work. So I'm in total control of my own schedule. And I really appreciate that.
It is nice. It's interesting too how normal it becomes. There's even this morning, I try to really appreciate it. Like every day, I try to remember what it was like before. Like this morning when I was taking Monty for a walk, on the way back, I went, you go onto these underpasses, so the roads above, and it was traffic, it was gridlock. It was about 10 to 9. And so it was just, everyone was just sitting there in their car. And I just thought, like, I felt like walking my dog. And I was so grateful. And it's those mornings, I think, for me, like the other day I came in here, well, even this morning I come in here and it's dark, and I light a candle now in the morning,
Oh,
and it's
nice.
a new thing. Yeah, because it's dark outside and I have a candle. I've got my dressing gown on, and I've got like a little lamp over here. And I sit here and I think I would have to be walking to work now. I'd be in the rain, or, and
Hmm.
it just becomes normal. It's a normal thing, and it's hard to remember sometimes when you've been doing it for a long time. At least it is for me, that my life used to be, I hated it. I'd be like, oh, I wish I had my time was for myself. And now it is. It's just like it's just normal.
And I also would caution people not to get like discouraged at first, because if you do choose to do this kind of work and you do have that flexibility, it can feel wrong at first to have so much of your own time, or like you're not doing enough. And I would just advise people, just sit in it and enjoy it. Find something. I mean, at first I had to train myself to just do jigsaw puzzles and be okay with sitting there for a sustained amount of time and not doing. And that's kind of how I trained myself to be all right, just sitting still, and kind of focusing on something that wasn't work. And because even, when you are working in a traditional job, even if it's not your own business, you are still taking that home in your mind with you. It's rolling around in there, and it can be very difficult to let go of that. So.
Yeah, I mean, with me, I love what I do, and I often find, I walk as I'm walking my dog, I'm thinking about my business, but it's something I like to do. I do remember when I used to work in restaurants and things, I'd come home and I remember sitting in the bath once so stressed. And I thought, I don't want this. This is not like I'm not at work anymore. But because it's my own business, it's like a problem to be solved almost. And it's quite fun because I choose to do it.
Right.
I think this is the case. I'm still guilty of this, and I've been in business since 15 years, since 2009. So I still sometimes I think, oh, I should be working. I should be. And it's like that sort of institutionalized mind is still there. Um, yeah. And so sometimes I'm like, well, you've done your work for the day. It's fine. It's almost like I kind of look at my never ending to-do list because the
Yes.
to-do list never ends, right? There'll always be something that goes on the end. You're never going to get to the end. But I like to, I'm like, let me try and get it done. And
Right.
it's impossible, but I'm also guilty of this myself, actually, not. I mean, I do things here and there, but when I think I need to get back and do some work.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah.
then we get those, that, like you said, never ending to-do list. And then, yeah, I have to sit down and go, all right, well, I'm not getting any of this done now because there's so much of it. So what's the first thing? What am I going to focus on this week, you know? So yeah, it's kind of a trap if we don't just kind of slow down and focus a bit. But yeah, at least
Yeah.
you know, it's more our things to decide to think about instead of how we can, somebody else's stuff and their business and all the time and energy I'm giving to it. We get to share that with people that we want to work with.
That's true. So I guess, well, so question 5 is what is the most rewarding part of working for yourself? So I guess that comes, you know, uh, along the same themes, really, of just having that freedom.
I think what I love most is, well, I started this in 2022, and I right out the gate after taking the DIY VA course, that I just saw a job in an email in an industry that I was in. I was a short-term rental owner and a superhost for Airbnb. And then I got this industry newsletter all the time, and then they had an appeal in that for someone to audit their website, and it had like hundreds of posts. So I just responded to that email request and got the work, and it was really it felt great to get out the gate that way. And then that project was done in about a year. And then I decided to start offering this notary service. So I went all in on just creating that aspect of my business, building that separate website, getting that market share, and learning how to market myself in my community. So then now that's successful. And now, I get to decide I want to only work with nonprofit organizations to help them this year. That's my focus this year. So I think what I really find most rewarding is that I get to decide what my work life is going to be like in that way. So this is something that's really important to me. So this is what I'm going to focus on this year. And if it ends up that it's not something a lot of people need, then I'll just move on to the next thing that I find interesting or that I want to learn about. And or that I have a skill set in that I can be helpful. Maybe I'll just tweak this that I'm focusing on this year and do something different with the same thing. So it means that I get to create what my work life looks like. So I find that most
So
rewarding.
yeah, I think also, like you said, because once you're established, once you get set up, that's when you can go, okay, now I can start to play with those sort of boundaries a bit more and decide who I want to work with. I think it's good to do that almost from the start, but it's hard to do from the start. Most people won't because it just won't come naturally.
Sure.
But you're in a better position to a bit later as well.
I think though that you can do that with almost with every client. Every next client gives you an opportunity to learn something new, to decide something about yourself. Do I like this? Or is there something, can I find them someone else to do this? Maybe that's what I'm best at, connecting people. So right from the beginning, I do think that we do have an opportunity to just decide, yeah, this isn't going to fulfill me. This doesn't have to be my customer. Not everybody's going to be, So I'd rather, sure. I mean, if it's just administrative stuff and it's just, daily things, then maybe if that's something that you enjoy, then you can go ahead and take that kind of work on regularly. And that's certainly sustaining. But I think we do have an opportunity with every potential client, every potential next client to make these decisions and bring ourselves closer to what's going to give us a really fulfilling day. So,
Yeah. So if that's the most rewarding part, question 6 is what is the most challenging part of running your own
Mhm.
business, being a VA?
Hmm. Um, well, you mentioned that especially, I mean, I don't want to diss men, but as a woman, because that's my experience, I have really struggled to say no to pretty much anything, any project, any board, or opportunity that people have put in front of me, even if it's not an opportunity for me, it's somebody else's opportunity. I feel, I've had to struggle to putting my own priorities first and deciding that, no, this isn't going to work for me at this time. So I think finding that balance, not every project I'm not going to be ideal for every project. And if I am not going to love it, then I'm probably not going to give them all of me, that I probably won't be in that headspace. Not that I wouldn't do great work for pretty much anybody. But I think that finding the balance and being okay with if someone says, no, I don't think we're a right fit, it's not personal, I can let go of that. Maybe it's just, they know what they need and I know what I need. So it's okay for me to say, I don't think this is a great fit. I'm not really sure that my skill set is going to benefit you the most. But and that's okay. It doesn't mean that I'm failing at that, So it's just been a process to kind of to learn that and be okay with it. And because always the North Star is I am shaping a life that I want. And this work is part of that. So I have to always keep that in mind.
Yeah. I see that a lot actually with a lot of the newbies in the VA Handbookers Facebook group, particularly, where they feel that because somebody wants something that they need to provide it and do it because that's sort of been their role as a woman often. You facilitate other people's happiness, or at work, you're just like told what to do and you just do it, even if
Right.
it's not always within your job. It's just like loads of things, from it never even actually occurred to me. I never questioned when I was younger the fact that I was always the one that was like make the coffee and stuff, like even little things like
Right.
that. It was just I never thought, but they don't ask that man. It was just so normal that
Hmm.
the women were sort of just given everything from organizing an office party to a leaving card and all of those little things, tidying up the kitchen. That I think that when you become or yeah, when you start to run your own business and you become your own boss, it continues with you where you feel somebody wants a thing, especially if you've got children, you then facilitate what your kids want and you try to make it happen, or you know I've seen that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that it is a skill to hone as a business owner. To
Yeah,
just
it comes with
to
time, I think.
accept, to accept things that, and it just not take things personally like that, or to really observe how you're feeling in the moment when if you meet with a potential client and you're really excited and you make a great connection, then definitely, you can be you can have that reeling in your mind and be like, oh my gosh, there's 1,000 things I can do for them, and be really excited about it. If you're not feeling that, um, definitely if you need experience and you want to take that on and it's not something that if it's things that you generally are really good at that you want to take that on and you want to gain the experience, then sure, go for it. But if you're not feeling that it's a right fit or that it's going to be a great partnership, then, it is something. And we always, like you said, we feel like, oh, we have to say yes to everything. We're going to miss this, or they're going to talk badly about me, or they'll be mad at me, or whatever.
I'm
Um,
disappointed. The worst. I'll be
yeah,
disappointed.
yeah.
I'll disappoint somebody. I think people pleasing is a big thing. It's funny
Hmm.
because that when you were saying all that, it reminded me of like a first date when you get carried away after a first date. You're all excited, like all the possibilities, but
Right,
without actually thinking about whether that person's a good fit for you.
right,
You know?
right.
Yeah. So question seven, Beth, how do you get your clients?
I guess it's been by word of mouth mostly. Um, I don't do a lot of marketing for VA work. I am actually starting a whole marketing plan for working with nonprofit organizations this year that I have I just kind of came up with this. The idea came to me, the way to market this, from your 45 ways to be happier this year email that you put together. And I was like, 45 ways, let's see. And so it kind of wrote itself as far as how I was going to communicate with my potential audience this whole year based on that concept. So I have been working on that, and I will be offering like short courses and an email series and just, specific actionable things that people can do, and just lending my knowledge to that. And so my hope is that as many people that connect with me on that, they will see that I know what I'm talking about. And I will be using social media to market that and connect with organizations and individuals who are in leadership roles. I think that this is going to be my best way forward this year for this specific niche that I'm hoping to work mostly in. So.
It was interesting too because when we had the in the All Stars membership group where we had the New Year planning session, and
Hmm.
you talked about, so I've sort of stolen something from you too, where you talked about the creating 52 pieces of content. I've taken that idea and I've created. I'm going to do a little event, I think, on it, like a marketing event, where I get people to, I'm going to revise that concept and, just edit it so that they can create like 100 pieces of content using certain questions. And I can
Hmm.
also have lots of examples and stuff that I can put out. And I think I might do a session where they kind of like work on content together. But again, based on, isn't it funny? Like you looked at my 45 ways, I then went,
Yeah.
52 ways. And I was like, "Oh, I can use that. I love that. You can sort of get ideas from other people and then
Hmm.
adapt them to your own,
Yeah.
needs and audience." Hey, so question eight. What do you wish that you had known when you first started out?
Um, hmm. Well, I mean, I guess I don't know because I took your DIY VA course, so I was pretty prepared, and was set up and pretty comfortable and confident by the time I was finished with that. And I think that I wish I'd just known about this sooner. I mean, I'd been a business owner for a long time before this and had always been able to um, make something of that. I've been successful in business, and it has sustained me and raising my kids and my family and my home. Um, and so I wish that I had just known about this particular type of work. I don't know why I didn't really, but and I think it was really COVID that brought it out for most people. All of my work, I had to transition an entire municipality's services and function, as well as a nonprofit organization, within a month. I had to completely transfer all of their operations online. And then I was like, huh, well, that's a skill set, you know. So, and everything that I learned to do during that period of time was also a skill set. You know, all of the things like payroll and managing meetings and webinars and, you know, training sessions and support groups that I set up. You know, they required virtual settings. And so, you know, and it was funny because I started seeing your content. I don't know how I ran across it on Facebook, but the Handbookers group. And and I think I was just so grateful one day. You answered questions all the time, and you personally would pop into the group and just talk to people. And I was like, I'm so grateful that you're so generous with your knowledge. And you said something like, well, it's almost like I have a whole website. And it
Oh,
was
I'm
hilarious.
flattered. Yeah,
And I
it's
didn't
important, I
know that
think, to
you had the
talk to
website at
people.
the time. So it was really funny. I was like, oh my gosh, you do?
There's a whole website just for me to do it. Yeah, yeah. So it was interesting when you said that too, because I said, what do you wish you'd known when you first started out? And because you'd run businesses before, you kind of knew what was involved in running a business. You knew.
Hmm.
So some of the other interviews I've done, they're like, well, if I'd have known, I'd have to do all my marketing and that there wasn't
Right.
all those billable hours in the day. So you already knew those things, really. It was more specifically for you about virtual assistants as an industry, I suppose, rather than running a business, because they're two
Mhm.
different things, I guess.
Well,
Did you find actually? Sorry.
I had also I published a book based on my cleaning and organization business back in 2015. And it was really right kind of on the cusp of when self-publishing was coming on. And I was part of a great network of self-publishing authors. And I learned that taught myself from the ground up how to do it. And I knew from the get-go that marketing that book was going to be more important than even what was in the book. So I still work with authors from time to time, or like connect with authors, and they'll be like, well, I published a book and nobody's buying it. I'm like, well, we need a minor in marketing when we're authors. It's like this is like the thing you need to learn alongside of your process of writing your book. So I worked really, really hard at that when I wrote that and first published it, connected with national magazines and online newspapers and newsletters. And so, I've been in things like Family Circle and, Real Life Magazine, Martha Stewart Magazine, just mentioned in all of those publications. And it took a lot of work to do that. So,
Wow.
it's really
Yeah, yeah.
it's a mindset, and you teach that in your course. You talk about that it's one thing to be able to do all these things, but you have to develop a business ownership mindset.
It's true. I think one thing that I put in the course is that you can be the best virtual assistant on the planet, but if nobody knows you exist, then somebody
Right,
else will get the work. Like even applying for things, when you said about that person wanted some help with the website, you know I bet you people thought other people will apply and didn't bother, but somebody has to
right,
apply, right? Somebody has to
right.
get it. um it's when I was writing CVs years back, I noticed that men were getting things because they were applying for it, even if they weren't fully qualified. If they didn't have they didn't tick all the boxes. But women are like, well, I can't do that aspect of it, so there's no point even applying. And that's often why the men got this work that was why they weren't qualified for, because
Right.
somebody has to be hired, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, it's and it's not selling yourself either. It's just having conversations with people and
Hmm.
just being willing to talk about, not even willing to talk about your own business, but asking questions about theirs.
Exactly.
What are they looking to achieve? Because I think virtual assistants they're still facilitators like they used to be in their traditional employment. They are just making that thing happen. They're just charging
Hmm.
money for it instead.
Well,
So
every time you don't ask the question, the answer is no. So
exactly. Yes, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take,
That's right.
is the quote as well. Yeah. So with question 9 here, how do you kind of manage your work-life balance? Do you have you sounds like you do have quite a good work-life balance.
Um, well, my husband is 9 years older than I am. So I'm in my mid
Mm.
50s, so he's already, switched to part-time. He's left like management work. He's no longer interested in being in leadership roles. He retired from his one of his primary jobs, and a long time ago, 10 years ago now. So my goal has always been in the last, that we're going to spend every bit of time we can together, enjoying our life together. And so that's how I kind of structure things. I'm just very intentional about the amount of hours that I'm willing to work. In the summertime, there are days when we want to go to the pool, the community pool, and hang out in the sunshine, or we're going to take hikes with our dog. I work around that. Sometimes I actually get a second wind um, late, and some of my best work hours are like from 9 to 12 at night, so I will, just if I've had a really great day and I've been outside and just kind of have a new burst of energy in the evening. And I mean, granted, this is if I'm doing it's project work or appointment work, I can do I can be more flexible in that way. I do online notarization for my state also. So somebody can just call me and be like, oh, well, I need something notarized. And I can just pop down to my office, be like, all right, meet me online and we'll do it. So those things are easy enough to fit in, but I'm just very intentional about the amount of time that I am going to allow myself, even taking on clients. I don't need to do that right now. I can keep a running list of potential people, but I don't need to necessarily have that work right now. And how is that going to look in my schedule? How am I going to feel? What am I putting away or pushing aside to make room for this? And is that worth it to me? So.
Yeah, living the dream, Beth. Wow, just it's
Well,
really
it has to come
inspirational, isn't it?
sooner
I
or
think
later, right? Might as well
it
come in
is
your
it's
50s.
it is really inspirational as well, I think, when people hear this because but there is a lot of hard work involved too, especially at first, it's getting to that position. It's more, I think, once you've established yourself a bit more and some people are better than others. Some people are straight out off with the boundaries quite quickly, and working with the people that they want to, and they take that on board quite quickly and are quite easy. They find it easy to adopt that mindset. But other people, they don't. They have to be in business for quite some time until they sort of learn those lessons,
Mhm.
and then they get to the point where they're like, oh, and now now I've learned enough, or now I'm in a financial position that I can kind of pick and choose and have a waiting list and whatever. And I think that the same with all the trainees really from the course. Some of them get clients really quickly. They're like, I've been on the course 2 weeks and I've got a client. What do I do? They freak out and it's like, don't panic, we're here. And other people, it takes them a bit longer. And then they're off like, it's like buses, they three come at once. So I
Right.
think that the journey is different for everybody.
For
But yours is
sure.
a really inspirational story. It really is.
Well, I think
Um,
that with women, especially, or I'm not going to say that, and I'm not going to say that, people my age. So I am 56, and I started this almost 3 years ago now. So, um, I may have had a background in owning businesses before. So the mindset, I had already really established myself in my thinking about what my value is, what my value to myself is, what's important to me to earn, what I need to earn. So, I definitely had that established. But I will say that right before I started my business, I had had a fairly negative experience with a leadership team, and it started to make me doubt myself, and my instincts about work and people. And so for a little while, I did feel maybe not so strong in my business mindset. Like, do I really know what I think I know? How could I have been so wrong about this particular situation? So it helped me to, I mean, you used to have I can't remember what it used to be called, that before it was the imposter syndrome email series that you had. There was another, I can't remember, it was a confidence course. You had a mini confidence course. And it really was, it's very helpful. And I also did the email series too that you have for imposter syndrome. And I really find that helpful to go back to from time to time, because we forget all that we know. We forget all that we have experienced and overcome. And I think that it's important, to not let those things get in our way, to kind of see beyond that, remember all that we've done, and know that we can do it again, so it does require, that mindset. But I don't know. I do think that I was at a little bit of a disadvantage right before starting this business, and it felt like kind of like this rainbow and this clear sky opened up once I did, and saw that it was possible. So yeah, just as you can do this at any age. It's not just for younger people to get into, but I think it's a great way to make a living.
It's one of the things that I not wish that I'd done sooner because I don't think I could have done. I'd never heard of it, and I would have. I think I was always suited to being a business owner. I've never liked work. Like I like working. Like I mean, on one hand, I love work. I love being useful and creating things
Hmm.
and helping people and doing something that I feel is worthwhile. But I just felt that none of my jobs were ever, but they were, a lot of them were just pointless. I was like, what's the point of this? Like, what's,
Right.
so I think I was always, even since I was very young, sort of naturally suited to being a business owner.
Hmm.
Um, but as I was saying to Denise in the other interview, I didn't know any business owners when I was growing up. I wasn't aware of any um, as well. So I didn't start. I became a virtual assistant at 38. I'm 53 now. And yeah, on one hand, I'm like, oh, I wish I'd done it sooner, but I just couldn't have done because I knew that I would, I think that I knew that I would always be good at being a business owner, but I was like, but doing what? You
Right.
know, I didn't know what that would be because I didn't have the experience to. And then with virtual assistants, I was like, oh, I can do that. It's just like helping people with some stuff.
Hmm.
Like, and if I can't do it, I'll just say I can't do it, but I'll find someone else that can maybe and help it and then manage it. And that I think it was almost like an overconfidence where I'm like, yeah, not like not like overrepresenting myself in that way, but I've always sort of thought, yeah, I can probably do that or work that out, or
Hmm.
there's sort of character traits that I've always sort of felt I've had. So yeah, it is,
And
God, thank God for going for self-employed.
every new experience also, even if it's in your personal life, offers an opportunity to do another thing. And, I sold my short-term rental, it was my home for 30 years, and I worked really hard at getting that house sold. And even though we used a realtor, it was a big process. And then we had to buy a home in a new community. And that whole process and the connections that I made in the new community, that people that I'm still connecting with now through that process. And I stepped back and I was like, is there a thing that they call this, helping people do this? And there is. It's like a real estate concierge. I was like, hey, I could do that, helping people research the school district and get inspectors and that sort of thing, and all the things that they need to do that really caused me a lot of stress while trying to work and, manage my home at the time. That are skills that now I have. So you can look at all the things that you learn how to do throughout even your personal life that you can gain experience at and be like, hey, I'm really good at this. This could have been a nightmare, but I made it all better. So,
Yes, yes. I remember a virtual assistant who had project managed, their whole house being built and stuff. And it was,
mhm,
but hadn't really thought of it as being a big deal. I'm like, really seriously, like that's hands on,
yes.
and sometimes you can. yeah, have done something in your personal life that you don't really think counts for much because you don't have a qualification in it or you haven't done a course in it or whatever, but
Hmm.
you've got people that have who haven't got the experience. So
Right.
it's yeah, people want someone that can help them. So finally, number 10, our last question, Beth. What advice would you give to anyone who is watching this, who is considering virtual assistants as a career?
I think that this goes along with a lot that we've talked about, and the question that I had from the get-go was, do I really have enough to offer? Can I really do this? Who do I think I am? That sort of question. And there's an exercise in, I can't remember which one of the books it was that we read, that you had recommended it, and it's the one about the scanner personality. Um, I can't
Refuse to choose.
refuse to choose. Yeah. So just this idea of having this book where you write down all of the things you want to do, and then all of the things that you have done, all the things you know how to do. So just kind of breaking down, oh, I had this job. What are all the things I did in this? Well, I also raised children. What are all the things that I learned how to do in managing a home, or, managing a work-life balance, or, kids, in schools, and navigating these things, being in my community, working for an organization, running for school board, or whatever. Any of those things that you learned how to do, just think about it and write it down and be amazed at all you know how to do. And even if those processes change over time, you still have like a base knowledge of what needs to be done. And even if the way we get it done changes, you can still learn, new ways. But I do think that that was a really important exercise for me when I read that book. Is like, wow, but it can also be overwhelming because you can say, "Oh my God, I know how to do all these things. How do I how I started this interview with you is my biggest fear. Like, I don't know how to narrow it down, really." But then going through that list and being like, I really loved this. This was one of my best experiences. I think I could be really fulfilled doing this kind of work. So thinking that that's a primary service you might want to offer to people. That's a specific audience that you can nail down your communications with, and connection with. So I think that that's probably the best advice that I could give to anyone thinking about doing this, because most of the time I think we just feel like we don't know enough, or who do I, like the imposter syndrome, who do I think I am to think that I can be helpful to other people. And you know so much more than you think you do. And you might already have most of the tools you need right in front of you to get started, so.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's funny. When you were saying that, I remembered this when I went for an interview I worked at Brighton Racecourse and I worked in the events department. But I remember I really wanted that job, at the time I really wanted the job. It was my last ever job actually, so at one point I didn't want it anymore. But when I went for the interview, I remember just thinking, God, I bet there are so many people here. I knew that there was like 10 other people that were being interviewed and people that had got experience and stuff. And they were like, how would you be able to manage all the different meetings and, delegates and all this? And I remember saying to them, when I ran a pub, I used to do the door on a Friday night. Like, so if I, and, and it was quite a big pub. So if I can handle like 200 really drunk people on a Friday night, I can definitely manage your delegates. And I think back with people with kids, like I don't have any children. And yet I see people in my Facebook group often thinking, oh, I can't do it, I can't do it. And yet when I do those posts, which is like, what's your greatest achievement apart from having kids? They're like, oh, I went to the base camp of Everest, or I did a charity walk, or I've done 8 marathons, or I've done, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, all these things that these people have done. And some of them as well, where they're like, and even raising kids. I've got friends who have got kids, and I definitely could not do it. I would have, I would have just, it's not for me, you know? I would have gone insane. I just think, how did that not break you? How did you manage that? I watch my friends with kids in awe, and I think, yeah, not a skill I have. I wouldn't have wanted that. So I kind of think, you know what, if you can raise children, you can do anything. Like
Yeah.
seriously, being a virtual assistant, nothing. Running a business is nothing. The women that do it, they do both. Most women
Hmm.
who run virtual assistant businesses have children. When I poll the group, 80 odd percent of the group have children. So,
Hmm.
they set up a business with children. And I think that's the hardest job. I think that's the one that people should often, call upon and go, well, if I can raise kids, then I can definitely run a business. It's not as hard.
Well, there are lots of things like that too. Like we've had, experience with um, mental health concerns, and people often are navigating that in their families. And so I ended up working in that industry, because that was my knowledge base. And I provide support for families that are going through that and have a lot of knowledge to share. You can offer that as a service. You can be a person that kind of helps someone navigate a system that you've had experience in. So there are lots of different experiences, even like managing or handling the aspects of aging parents in your life. These are things that we just develop skills, and sometimes we're succeeding at it, sometimes we're getting knocked down in it, but we learn how to overcome those things. And I do think that just kind of learning, gaining the tenacity in each of those segments of our lives to just keep pushing forward, that teaches us something new all the time. So just being able to look at your life in a way that is different than we usually do, instead of all the things I don't know how to do or all the things I've never accomplished. You're here today. 100% of your days you've succeeded making it through. So you definitely, and you're managing and you're standing upright, even though we're flying through space at tens of thousands of miles an hour. So,
When you think of it like that, yeah, definitely. That is wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today, Beth. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
thank you, Joanne. I love working with you and the VA handbook. So thanks for this opportunity to share.